Boom. There we are. Hey, what's up, Sean?
How's it going, Garrett?
Pretty good. It's a little bit hot here today because I have the windows closed when I do the streaming, so that to spare myself and the neighbors. But other than that, it's pretty good. Yeah. So we're just gonna do a quick stream here. I'll probably make this into a video as well, but I just wanted for you to share a little bit about your experiences with Undoing. We met because of the Summerland show. You were familiar with the Radical Undoing a little bit, or the works of Dr. Hyatt, as I understood. Uh,
Correct.
okay, and you stumbling up to the gates of Summerland, uh,
That's right.
and ended up. So you started out. You did the 12-day challenge. I used to call that the 12-day mutant challenge, and I'm going to save the story about why it was called that for a later Easter egg in the Summerland Academy, but now it's called the Summerland Challenge. It's a 12-day challenge. Soon that's going to be one of the main doorways or gateways or entrances into the world of Summerland, the Summerland Academy. Uh, at that time, it was run on Facebook in the group. So you started with that. I remember you did that. Then you had a Radical Undoing session with the group that we do each week. I remember you jumped on there. And then what was it? 2 days ago, that was Saturday, correct? Yeah,
Yeah.
Saturday. You had experienced a private Radical Undoing session.
Yes.
So now we're up to speed on that. So let's go back to the challenge and anything that, or even what, first of all, what were you looking for? Why would you show up, and watch the Summerland show streams? What was compelling to you about this work? And then that, what interested you in making the effort and doing the challenge?
Okay. Yeah. So what interested me and compelled me to do the work was the fact that it's very somatic. It's very body based, uh, and I'm I'm someone who spends a lot of time just banging around in my head. One of those really cerebral types. The very aptly called the snow globe of hell, the hellish snow globe, if you will. Uh,
Yeah.
yep, that's the one. Uh, and so, uh, yeah, I just happened to see YouTube served me your Summerland stream on that day, and uh, that was very good timing because I think that's exactly what I needed. At the time I had just recovered from a pretty bad depressive episode and
Okay.
had a lot of anxiety in my body and stuff, and couldn't get out of my head. So, uh, but yeah, and also being familiar with Dr. Hyatt's stuff, I thought, well, I know that this is something I'm going to enjoy, and I did. Doing the challenge uh, was really cool. There's other people doing it, and it's helpful to see kind of the effect that it's having on others as well and their
Hmm.
experiences. So you're not just like kind of in a vacuum and wondering, oh, is this normal? What is this? What's supposed to be happening? Is anything supposed to be happening? Right?
Yeah.
And it really is good just to socialize with other people anyway, right? Like real people. Uh,
Yeah, it makes a huge difference with this type of work too. It actually can. Whereas, let's say modernity and generally in society, what happens is the stress levels and chronic tension in the body become the norm. They become normalized, and bodies will tend to mimic each other. And so, if everybody's chronically tense in a specific way, which they generally are in the shoulders and the neck and around the eyes, different ways, then that will become normalized. Just the same way if you're with a group of people who we talked about this privately, with a group of people who are complaining all the time, and you're not aware and not doing anything about it, you'll tend to drift into that complaining. And the same way goes for the emotional content of the facial muscles, the chronic tension patterns of the face muscles, and the tension patterns in the rest of the body. They'll start to mimic. that. And the reverse is true. This is what's so cool, is that you can actually normalize uh, relaxation and energized relaxation, meaning you're alert and aware. A lot of times people think relaxation is being tired and not moving around, but it can be energized as well. So you start normalizing the opposite of what society is doing. You start normalizing presence, like non-competition type of communication, meaning more authentic communication, and then normalizing releasing of tension, letting go of reactivity, and let's say removing the identity out of that hellish snow globe of the mind and putting it back into the body and into where the observer, more like the dispassionate observer. Like, okay, all this is going on. There's a bunch of shit going on in here. Is it real? Oh no, it's actually not real. Okay. And then there's these feelings, this intensity, but like the intensity is fine. What, it can't really do anything. So all of that becomes normalized in a group. And when I used to work with people just almost solely individually, they would get results. They would still get fast results, but it was nothing compared to the group aspect of it. Where and it's all this unspoken, almost unnoticed stuff until you go back to the tense people and the upset people, and then you'll notice, oh man, this group is like way less tense, way less reactive, and then people bring that out. It's almost like they become beacons of that. They bring it back out into their life and into their relationships, into their families and stuff like that from the undoing group. Anyway, I went off on quite a tangent there, but you reminded me of that, all that stuff when you mentioned that with the challenge, why it's cool communicating with the other people. So I don't always think about that, but that's super important with this work,
Yeah, yeah, and it's really important, to I think that's kind of a digital equivalent of touching grass, talking to real people face to face, as it were, and not some avatar that you can and then anonymize yourself behind and just, let the worst part of your nature, come out. It's harder to do that when you're looking at them, right? When you've got but I guess that's kind of a digression. The energy of the was great, and the challenge was eye opening. You introduced to us all of these exercises and different things that we could do every day to really start to, and I do mean start to, release that tension, right? The patterns, and it's amazing what we are completely unaware of in our bodies every single day, every moment, and it became during the process of that, and I'm reminded of this during the sessions, like with the group and the private one, that I think that, and maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but I think we tend to think of like, we have this command center up here where all the consciousness and all the real action is going on. And we just kind of have this meat suit that we're just kind of ordering around, that does our bidding. But it's really, it really is a whole organism, there's a lot of intelligence and a lot of awareness, I think, in other areas of the body, and of course, you could boil it down to that old, mind-body dichotomy. But at this point, that's kind of a cliche, right? It doesn't even mean anything anymore until you experience it. And that's exactly what happens, I think, when we do the challenge and start doing the undoing work, is you really start to know experientially that is the case, that it's not a dichotomy. It's a unified system, and it affects everything.
That's a solid way to put it, and it's funny because a lot of the mind body connection and stuff gets a lot of lip service, but I'm not sure. But it's funny, you mentioned the hellish snow globe, the mind that people are trapped in. you can have words like mind-body connection. You can read books about that, and that can be in the hellish snow globe. And the why it's so hellish is that the words is that we end up reacting to the words. We've replaced our direct experience, our primary experience, which is even before it gets put into words. Like when I say feel the effects of the exercise, that doesn't mean notate the effects of the exercise. That means just be aware of the inside of the body of what's going on. And even when I say the words be aware of the inside of the body, it's like, whoa, suddenly like this whole thing becomes present again. And so inside the hellish snow globe of the mind, there can be the phrases, the mind-body connection. There can be the phrases of like, be in the present moment. And I notice, in fact, for a lot of people, especially the more and more books they've studied on that in the what I call the fake seeking, then the more trapped they've become into this wall of words, and they've established ideals that they're trying to live up to that are also imaginary. You see? Yeah. So it's layers and layers and layers of shit. But the good news is none of it's actually real. The only stuff that's real is if you can actually test it, if you can try it out. And that's where the undoing, I think, stands above many other approaches, is you have simple things you can actually test. If I say face stretches does this, then you go do it. And now you have that direct experience of it, which is outside of the snow globe.
Yes. Yeah, it's direct experience, which is altogether different than the words and the symbols we use to represent it.
Yeah. So fascinating. There's a point at which we were forced to sit in desks, forced to, listen to someone blather on who may or may not have had any kind of merit. They had authority, but they may not have merit, meaning our teachers. Some did, some didn't. We were forced to sit there and replace our direct experience with verbal information, and then information from books and whatnot. Nothing's wrong with that information. It's powerful. It's amazing. But that we got taught to subjugate our primary direct experience and replace it with linguistic and storylines, linguistic narratives.
Narratives, yeah.
And the narratives become prioritized above the direct experience. So that's how a person can lie to themselves. Oh no, this is fine. Everything's fine. This is okay. Well, it's obviously not okay, and it's killing you or whatever. You know what I mean? Something just like, it's not right, but you just go ahead with it anyway. And that's because we got taught to subjugate our primary experience and put it below the storylines, the narratives.
Yeah, we sure did. And there's a lot of, don't believe anything that, don't believe your own experience, believe me, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a whole rabbit hole we can go down when that starts to take hold. And the undoing work can really, I feel like it's kind of far reaching like that, the implications, all those things, you can kind of break free of the fake seeking, and, you also talk a lot about the fake suffering, which is endemic, especially, in our current zeitgeist, perhaps, where everything is social media and it's facades and veneers, and that further disconnects you from your actual experience. And this work, I think, really has a profound effect on that.
Yeah, let's talk about your experience of it. So maybe it makes sense to just talk about the most recent session, and if you had any thoughts regarding that, or you've had a couple days to let it sink in.
Yeah,
but you can describe whatever you want about it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe the first thing is, I think most of the time we don't breathe properly, you know. um, Even if we know how, our if we're not thinking about it, generally we won't do it, right? The breathing becomes maybe a little shallower, not so much in the belly, right? It's kind of really up here, and uh, so one of the things that really stands out for me, when we start doing especially the breathing part, right, is you're doing that. You're taking those big full breaths the whole time, and almost at first it almost feels like you're going to hyperventilate or something, right? Like you
Mhm.
start feeling this, but you don't, right? You just start, I guess, getting enough oxygen
Yeah,
for some.
it's
You
wild.
know, it is, and then like my body starts kind of tingling, right? Like, oh wow, there you are. And in that process, become just aware of the things that are going on. Uh, and of course, that's heightened quite a bit at the end, when we do the noting.
The
Um,
sense and feel, yeah.
rep,
Yeah.
and that's the whole purpose of that. But even before then, I start to notice, oh, there's that, and it really is just a feeling of being embodied, right? Uh, like, to go back to my previous analogy, it's like you're sitting in this command center, but then you just open the door and you go out and into the rest of your actual body, and you experience, hey, it's there, it has things going on. It may have something to tell you. Uh, I mean, I don't want to get too foo-foo about it, but
Sure.
just like, just sensations, and stuff that I think typically, if they happen and you're not paying attention or you're not aware of them, they might just feed right into whatever narrative you're going on, right? Like, I'm feeling this, and uh, like you said with the face stretches,
Hmm.
and how they break that energetic pathway to kind of emotional reactions.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I feel like I really start to uh, know that experientially in these sessions, and it's a cool feeling.
And how might that, let's say in like a real life situation, how might that translate into, let's say a person stressed, they have, like yourself, you have family, so you have
Mhm.
all these family dynamics going on, pressure on you, duties you have to keep up with, your work and whatever. So how does radical undoing, how does a session translate into real life results? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it does transfer. Um, so right after a session, you are bringing kind of this energy with you, out into the world, like you said, and maybe you start to normalize that, right, with the people around you, which is my family, right, and number one, reactivity. Oddly, or maybe not oddly, it's just being more aware of your body, and how it's responding to certain things. Maybe my wife will say something snarky and get an attitude, about the fact that I just spent an hour and a half, not helping her with the kids. Uh, Instead of getting defensive about it, what? You see it happening. You see this response, you feel this response, and you just kind of go, huh, okay, well, that's what that experience is just exactly what that feels like. It's not what my hellish snow globe interprets it and wants to come back with. That's not real. What's real is and this is a real life effect, is what's real is what you are experiencing, what you are feeling, right? And that doesn't mean anything.
Mhm.
It just is.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. You know, you can choose at that point to break that cycle, to break that pattern. Uh, and that is a huge effect that the work has had. I've noticed on interactions. Um, and being able to relax more, you know, because when you start, I think when you start becoming paying a lot more attention,
Mhm.
doing work to everything, uh, how your body feels on the inside, then you do start to notice any automatic tension, maybe that creeps in, or you know, if you react to something and maybe you're not letting it go, right? I mean, water off a duck's back. You know, if you're aware of it,
Mhm.
you can let it go, because whatever you're not aware of will control you.
Right. Like you're forced into some kind of reaction, right?
Exactly, exactly. And I think that especially in our current milieu, if I may,
Mhm.
that reactivity is everything. You know, I mean, it's this outrage culture, and we're all kind of programmed to react to everything, and enraged is engaged, and it's like we're monkeys and they're pulling our tails, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and they know, and they can just pull our tails, and you know, we'll react however. But when you do undoing, you really can start to break that. It seems like, you know, and all it is, and that's what's amazing is it's not some mental process, you know, it's not some learning, you know, principles or anything. It really is just springs from this body awareness and from doing this work to release the patterns and the tensions that apparently really are kind of lodged in your body, I guess. Uh,
Yeah. Something you mentioned about the breathing is that, like, so if a person's diaphragm is tense, that's that muscle under the ribs there,
mhm.
which it almost always is in people. And they're either people are usually breathing either only in the belly or only in the chest, generally in the chest, especially people that have anxiety and panic. It'll be like this, you know, and even the
Yeah,
shoulders will come up with it. And when they're breathing, they're already in what that's what's called emergency breathing. So that's all these muscles in the neck and shoulders are pulling up the rib cage, and that's typically for a human that in natural breathing that muscle group would be reserved for emergencies where you're already at full lung capacity, and then these muscles will lift up the rib cage to force a little bit more oxygen in, like for an adrenaline response or for being needing to handle something or needing extra strength or whatever. But people are living in that reactive state all the time, and then when something actually happens, when they would normally just be able to, like, the body would automatically take a deep breath. Oh, okay, something's going on. There's intensity, and you'd breathe through the intensity of whatever situation. There's no extra space left. They're already operating at emergency breathing level, and the diaphragm's so tense that they never are. When something happens that they actually need a little bit more strength or a little bit more oxygen or energy for something, there's no space left. They're already at full capacity with the emergency muscles. And so everything gets reacted to as if it's an emergency. Kind of like if if you've ever dropped a piece of paper and then have this reaction, like, like some huge trying to catch the thing, and it's like, what? You know what I mean? But they're reacting to small things like that in life with a huge response. And what's going on behind the scenes in the body is the people are making an effort to stay tense. Just like if I was to tense up right now, it costs me effort to do this,
yeah,
I'm using effort to stay tense like this. And so that's happening in the background, in the whole body. And then in the mind, also, another effort is being made to basically stay upset about certain things, and reactive. Oh, this motherfucker. Da, 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 da.
yeah,
And you can point it out to people. They don't like to have it pointed out, but you can say, dude, you're complaining all the time. And then they will be like, what? Now you're the thing they're going to complain about, you see?
Yeah, that's right.
So it stays within, and forgive them, you know, God bless everybody. But that's the nature of staying in that hellish snow globe. And then it's almost like a diving suit. You know, there's the hellish snow globe, those old school diving suit with the huge metal helmet.
Yeah.
And then like the big, but then with like a suit of armor. And the suit of armor is on the inside of the body. It's the muscles. So the people are trying to protect themselves from feeling fully alive. And now with psychiatry, psychology, feeling fully alive translates into anxiety. And now it's medicalized. Now it's an illness, you see? And people will say, I have anxiety. I'm like, pull it out of your pocket and show it to me. Yeah. Like, what do you mean you have it? You know? You don't have that. What's actually going on? Don't use the word anxiety. Tell me what's going on. And then they go, oh, I feel this in my throat. Okay, let's do some exercises now. Now we'll do exercises specifically for what's actually happening. Whereas I have anxiety. Now you've just thrown your direct experience into a cardboard box that has the label anxiety on it. Mm-hmm. And it has a negative valence to it now, meaning a negative charge, which doesn't, like you said before, it's just a direct experience. It doesn't have a positive or negative connotation. It's just what's happening.
Right.
It's not like you've been stabbed in the leg or something, you know. Then you know, okay, wow, this is has a negative valence, and you got to deal with it. So people are being trained to react to feeling fully alive and feeling intensity or frustration. All these words are so funny. If I practice guitar, if I'm practicing finger picking some new pattern or learning something that's new to me on guitar, I hit a frustration level with it pretty fast. That's the only way you can learn anything, is you hit what we've labeled frustration. We need new words for these things. And if you can tolerate the frustration, for 5 or 10 minutes at a time, you start getting rapid progress in whatever it is you're studying. But if you can't handle any frustration at all, and what is frustration again? Some kind of intensity in the body and confusion in the mind. But there's nothing wrong with confusion in the mind. You should be confused. You're learning a new thing.
Yeah,
you're sorting out the confusion, you see. And then that will lead to this feeling of excitement when you actually, oh wow, I just got the pattern correct. Yes, you know what I mean? You'll have a whole excited reaction in the body. So that's the dance of learning anything. But people will say, I can't sing, I can't draw. And when you ask a person alone in a room to take out a piece of paper and draw something, draw scribbles even, they're afraid to do it. They have a body reaction to not do it. They're afraid to sing. They'll sing alone, but they're afraid of being heard. What is the threat? You know what I mean? What is the threat? There is actually no threat. Even if they got on stage in front of 20,000 people and made an ass of themselves singing or dancing, there's still no threat, actually. There might be, social consequences to that. But if you don't care, then those consequences will be minimal. Nothing will actually happen, you know?
That's true.
People might even admire you for it, you know?
And what I guess you could argue that in reality, nothing does happen, you know? I mean, you feel these sensations, you know, and that's it before your snow globe overlays the narrative and the victim or the.
Then we're talking about, we're grown men and women here, you know, supposedly, and like people raising kids and doing this life. And it's like we talked about, I don't think people realize how are you going to pass on this ability to handle the difficulties, the inevitable difficulties and challenges in life to your kids? How are you going to pass that on to them? Is it going to be intellectually? You know what I mean? Is it going to be in a lecture or in a book? No. So
right. You know,
I'm really pissed off of you, son. Read this book so you can learn how to not react like I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do, right? But they always do as you do.
Yeah, and that's automatic. It's not even their own fault for doing it, but their body is mimicking your body. So that's a cool thing with the undoing that I've seen with parents is as they do the undoing work, the kids are more receptive automatically. Their bodies are more receptive, and they will start to relate to you more just from doing the undoing work. Not studying anything, not anything like that. In fact, when I was first doing the work really heavily, like a lot of undoing work every day, and then 2 full sessions a week with 2 guys I was teaching back in 2009, we had the benefit of communicating with each other pretty much on a daily basis about our experiences, and I wouldn't have noticed or thought these things were odd or novel if I hadn't had that daily connection with these guys that were doing the same work. But we noticed what people call synchronicity. I think that's just how reality is composed. But what people call synchronicity was happening really, really on a daily basis with each of us. And then when we'd go to I'd go to these restaurants in Portland, Oregon. That's where we were doing it, or in Eugene. And kids that were in line with their parents or whatever, they would just come around and start talking to me when I was in line at these or at these restaurants. And animals and kids were just like come running up, and I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And then it was happening for the other guys too, and that's when I was like, oh, okay, this is wild, you know. But animals and kids would just automatically notice something was different, that there was this receptivity going on, you know, and not putting on a show. There's a great phrase from Vernon Howard I always loved, which is say to yourself throughout the day, thank God the show is over. You know, just all the time, forever. Keeps repeating in your own, thank God the show is over. Oh, man.
Thank God the show is over.
Doesn't it feel like a relief just to say it?
Thank God the show is over. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, man, what was I doing?
You know what? I think that's part of the dehypnotizing breath, right? That you
dehypnotizing breath. Yeah. Oh, thank God the show is over. Wow, man. Oh,
you know, they say the show must go on, but no.
Yeah, no, the show must end. That's the show has to stop, dude. You got to stop.
It does, stop. Yeah.
They get back to real life, you know. All right, man. Well, that's probably a nice time to end. Vanya says hello. That's cool. She was in the challenge as well. So
hi, Vanya. Hey.
Yeah. Nice to have you watching, Vanya.
Yeah, it is.
We'll have her on a stream too sometime. But yeah, we'll do more of these. I might even do a Summerland episode tonight. We'll see. Yeah, I think that's good enough for now. We got into some fun territory. Nice to see you, Sean, as always. And
great to see you as well, Garrett.
Yeah, man. And thanks. We'll be in touch and figure out some more undoing stuff, and also about I'll have you on some Summerland show stuff as well.
Sounds great.
All right, man. Talk to you soon, and much love. God bless. Enjoy. Talk to you later.